welcome to another episode of SaaS Unbound. And here with me today is Adnan from Software Finder. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure, absolutely. It's super interesting when I learned about your story. You know, you're bootstrapped, you've been growing really well over the course of the years that you've been building. And I really want to know how, like, what are your growth levers, how you're changing your strategy if, your biggest focus is organic. So, before we get there, let's start with your background, like who you are, how you got to do what you're doing.
Sure. So just to give you a bit of a background, we started Software Finder back in 2019. Before we started Software Finder, I was working for a tech organization in multiple roles. The latest was doing their marketing and sales. And at that point, I, along with our other co-founders, we were working together in this company, figured out a huge problem in the B2B marketing and sales space, that when a company is looking for a software, there is not a lot of help out there for buyers when they're in the market for any B2B software related purchase. And that's when the idea clicked that if even for us, it is so hard to find buyers, then it's actually even harder as a buyer to find a software. So the problem was on the both end. If you're a vendor, it's hard to find the buyer. And if you're a buyer, it's hard to choose the right vendor because there's like hundreds of options out there. So that's when the idea clicked. The idea got maturity back in 2018-19, and that's when we started to build. We started to do bootstrap. It really worked to our benefit because we got our first customer in the very, very first month. So the service is absolutely free for the buyer. The service we provide the buyer is that they come to our website, they compare different options, and then when they narrow down a few options, they then reach out to us for sort of a consult as per their needs, what are the right options. And just to give you an example, so let's say if your company is looking for HR software, or if you're looking for HR software, then you can get maybe 5-10 best options from internet or through ChatGPT or LLMs really quickly. But it's an important decision for any organization if they're implementing HR, and without really talking to a consultant, it's not easy if you're going to implement or narrow down the right vendors as per your needs. I mean, just talking about HR or payroll, there are about maybe 800 software out there in the US right now. Globally, there will be thousands. So out of those hundreds of options, 1,000 of options, you cannot just rely on a search to tell you what are the best options, because it involves a lot of change management, a lot of implementation, cost involved. So, and every organization is unique in their own ways. Most of the softwares are built considering, some sort of ideal customer profile in mind. So not every software is made for every company. So that the idea that online directories exist, there are so many marketplaces where you can go and find information, read reviews, but that's not the only thing that can help you drive your initial decision making on what software should I be looking at to start with, or what companies or what vendors should I be shortlisting. And that's where our service comes in. We provide a phone consult, so like a quick 10-minute phone consult with the buyer, where we ask the right questions, read between the lines, ask them about their budgets, current needs, technology, why they're looking to implement, and all those, good pre-sales sort of questions. And then when consultants are trained in multiple different software companies' experiences and which technology is made for which company and what size, and then after spending that quick 8 to 10 minutes, we narrow down top 3 or top 5 options for the buyer that they should be looking at. And this entire service is absolutely free for the buyer. We don't charge anything for the buyer. And then once we narrow down the top 3 or top 5 vendors for the buyer, we then share the buyer's information after their consent with the vendors. And then vendor sales teams takes over, and then they start to reach out to the buyer. So we sit in the middle. We Software Finder is a marketplace, online directory, whatever you want to call it, but it is very different to your other marketplaces because we have a human element in place. In today's AI world, we still feel that the human element needs to be there.
Awesome.
For someone to speak.
Yeah, so you do some of the heavy lifting for potential buyers. When you started talking about having these two options, that it's a bit of a pain for sellers, of course, right? Because hey, we are tracking all kinds of touch points there with the potential customers. And for the buyers, it's also very difficult because, like you said, there are thousands, literally thousands of solutions out there. So we don't really know how to choose. So where did you start? Whose problem did you start with? So what was your chicken and egg kind of situation?
Yeah, so we did run into a chicken and egg problem in the start because the service was absolutely free for the buyer. We knew from the very start that we're not going to charge buyer for this service. So the chicken and egg problem that we had is if we get vendors and we don't have buyers, then we don't make any money because service is free for the buyer, and we only make money if we are supplying good quality prospecting to the vendors. And then if we have buyers and we don't have vendors to sell these, phone qualified leads to, then again we will not make any revenue. So we tried to balance it out initially, quickly, in order to get few vendors targeted a specific industry. We started with health IT. Our background was health IT, so it was easier for us to venture into health IT first. And then we got few vendors and we started targeting buyers in that space. We have done this before, so it was easier for us to get to the buyers in this space. So for about first 6 months to a year, our major industry was health IT, where we were connecting doctors or medical practices with the electronic medical record vendors or EMR vendors in that space. This is actually our biggest category now. We're probably one of the highest producers of leads in this category now. But yeah, so it was a problem in the start. I think we dealt it smartly, and that really was our first moving advantage. And that's probably another reason we kept on bootstrapping, because we had the vendor, we had the buyers, and the revenue started kicking in very quickly.
And how did you start that flywheel where you got more leads in without really falling into that health IT niche?
So our focus was health IT niche to start with. So the website initially was designed to only attract health IT buyers and health IT sellers in the start. And now if you go to softwarefinder.com under categories, we have more than 1,000 categories now listed on our website. But initially, if you look at our website in 2019, it was mostly about health IT and how we can help to narrow down options. So design and the UI and UX kept on changing as we kept on increasing our categories and getting into the new industries and categories year on year. But initially, yeah, so it was, from the tech perspective, it was easier to just keep it to health niche.
But it was the same kind of strategy. So you went after a new market and then started outreaching there, and the next one and the next one.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's pretty awesome. And so, that growth that I was talking about, you've had 3 years, 100% plus growth. So is that what is actually driving it? Is this kind of more of a sales approach, relationship approach? I don't know, account-based marketing, call it what you will. Is that what's driving this growth?
So we've been seeing 100% growth since last 5 years, which is great. So since 2020, we're seeing 100% growth rate. And the major growth driver, I would say there are a few things driving this growth. First of all, what we are doing, no one else in this industry does, which is providing phone consult at a level that we do. Our leads are so highly qualified that vendors continue to buy more and more with us because they find real value. And the real value, why they're getting real value, is because if you are a software vendor and you're doing marketing in today's world, and you get all, it's not easy to target your ICP in this, vast, huge marketing world. I mean, you still are as per your ideal customer profile, but still it is not easy. So what really happens is you get companies from all across and at the end, sales is sales. They will end up selling. And what really happens is after making a sale, then you see a huge amount of churn rate because you're not selling it to the right companies. And that's the problem that every software vendor that I speak to, churn is their biggest concern or their biggest nightmare. And that's where we come in, because we are speaking to the buyer beforehand. We are doing that pre-sales sort of a call, understanding what the buyer needs. And because we are vendor neutral, we then connect vendors. We then connect buyers with the right vendors as per what they're looking for. This way, it's not a great service for the buyer, but I would say it's an excellent service for software vendors, because now they're getting prospects as per their ICP, someone that they should be selling at, and the churn rate is a lot lower, and their conversion ratio is a lot higher from the leads that we're sending their way. So that's one of the major reasons. It's an excellent service that vendors appreciate, and they continue to spend more and more with Software Finder. The second biggest driver is that we are not industry specific. So we continue to grow into different industries, different categories, and it's such a huge market out there. And after AI, literally every week, there is a new category that is being formed, and there are new vendors. So for us, the growth doesn't really stop, because, we have penetrated the market. So once we do well in one category, we quickly jump on to the second, to the third, to the fourth. So every year we are growing exponentially, because there is nothing stopping us. For us, it's easier to plan that growth, because there's so many. I mean, there are still maybe 50 major categories that we haven't really actively started producing leads in. So that's why I feel for the next 5 years, we'll probably see another 100% growth.
Great. That sounds awesome. So, and when you're talking about your customers, at least what I feel is, since you're solving their churn, I mean, that's amazing, since it seems like for most of your customers, churn is a very painful thing, because it's extremely expensive and it's difficult to do, because with those solutions, you don't want to upgrade to the next vendor if you're in health IT every year.
That's absolutely right. So most people don't realize this, but studies show that 70 to 80% of the B2B software buyers are dissatisfied after purchasing, which is a huge number. Like every, 3 out of 4 people, they're not happy with the purchase that they've made. And in companies, it's a slow process. Like you don't realize it straight away, and then after a month you're switching. So in order to get to that stage, it takes about 6 months to a year, because there's long implementation cycles, there's a lot of change management, there's a lot of training that you have to provide. And after 6 to 10 months, if you're not satisfied, if you made the wrong call, it can slow your momentum, it can slow your growth. So it's not only the license fee that is costing you, there's a huge cost associated. I mean, just imagine if you're implementing something like ERP or even a digital marketing software, the way it can hurt you in terms of financially can be unmeasurable at time, because it's not only the license fee. There's so much associated with making a software purchase. So that's why the service is excellent on both sides, because it's not only the churn problem on the vendor side. I mean, obviously the vendor will see the losses, but what we have seen, the bigger losses is on the buyer end, because these are your small mid-sized companies, and they can potentially not grow forever because they made the wrong software call. We have even seen that.
Yeah. All right. So apart from that growth that you told me about with entering new markets and penetrating new industries, is there anything else that helps your growth? Is it SEO? Is it, I don't know, trade shows? Like, where do you find those leads for yourself?
Good question. So our SEO has been great. So for the last 5 years, we spent heavily in terms of SEO and AEOs these days. So we have about close to about 120 people team in only in content and SEO. We have over 100,000 pages on our website, so you can imagine how many keywords and content that we have to go through on a daily basis. Organic has been phenomenal for us. It took time, because organic takes a lot of time to grow. So in the last 2 years, our competition has seen 70 to 80% dip, whereas we have seen 300%, actually more than 300% increase in our organic traffic in the last 2 years. And it's because the fruits that we are seeing for the 6-year investment that we have made in terms of organic. On top of organic, we attend a lot of trade shows, but mostly because buyers are coming to us. It's easier for us to get sellers now, because the brand is getting established and they know the marketplace exists. So wherever there's buyers, seller will automatically come. It's easier on that front. So now we are also seeing a lot of organic growth on both sides, not only buyers coming to us when they're looking for software. A lot of software vendors are reaching out to us. They're looking for more leads to augment their sales pipeline.
So it's funny that you mentioned AEO. And a couple of days ago, I went to check all the newsletters that I'm signed up for. And there was one from Rent Fishkin where he says, okay, we're hosting this next office hours session where we're going to tell you why AI ranking trackers are a scam, basically. And, we're all kind of thinking about it, I feel like, what is it and how can we actually address the way we're ranking on ChatGPT and whatnot. But since you mentioned that you are actually investing in AEO, what are you doing? How has, all the AI search engines affect how you're doing SEO and content?
Yeah, so good point. So last, I would say 12 to 18 months, we are seeing buyer searches shifting very quickly towards LLMs. I mean, for all the right reason. I think naturally a lot of people are starting their research on LLMs because it's so easy, because it narrow down the option really swiftly for you the way other conventional search engines doesn't really used to do. I mean, even if you do Google, you rely on AI overview more than your blue links these days. So a lot of buyer behavior has been changing, which means if you're not actively showing up on LLMs, you're missing out on that initial top of the funnel or mid funnel traffic. So one thing with LLMs that LLMs love content. That's exactly what they're doing. So I often call this glorified SEO. I mean, it's at the end, it's whoever writes the best content shows up. It's just they're doing it in a much smarter way than what search engine used to do, with a lot of intelligence built in. So LLMs love content, and if you're not writing the right content, and if your content is not at that scale, then LLMs will not consume your content. So a lot of marketplaces are getting shown on LLMs these days because marketplaces write a lot of content. They generally write non-biased sort of content. So, it's not focused towards one vendor or one industry. And that's why our content has been picked up by a lot of these LLMs, and they're showing our content in their search results. So we're getting a lot of traffic from LLM in the last 1 to 2 years. The percentage wise is in thousands of percent more traffic that we get from LLMs now. So yeah, it's shifting. If you're not showing in LLM as a vendor, then it will be a big red flag going forward. So one thing that you can do on top of getting qualified leads from us is you can have yourself listed in our articles, in our content, in our top category pages, so that LLMs will start consume, because they're already consuming that content. So if you're listed there, you will start showing up in your searches, like, top project management software or your top HR software, 5 best software as per this and this and this requirement. So there's a good chance as a vendor you will start showing up on LLM, so you get more visibility and more branding this way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's not that it's such a big of a change in how we do it. I think it's just the way. It's a change of how much we should do it and how good of a quality of our content should be there. So yeah, I'm always curious what people talk about when they recommend doubling down on their AEO, because at the end of the day, it seems like there's not much difference. But okay, I have another question kind of leading into this, and it's about what you said, how buyers make decisions, right? It's reviews, it's LLMs, it's your calls with experts. So from all of this experience, seeing founders, buyers making those purchase decisions, what is the biggest mistakes that vendors are making when they think buyer is about to buy?
Okay, that's a really good question. I mean, there are like thousands of vendors out there, so it will be hard to categorize this to what mistakes they're making, because it all depends on the size of the organization as well. So small to mid-sized vendors, they're making totally different mistakes to your large size vendors. I would say if we talk about small to mid-sized vendors, they focus a lot on sales rather than marketing, which basically means is if you don't have a lot of strong marketing and branding supporting your sales conversion rates will not be a lot higher, and you are always pushing or pressurizing your sales to achieve more, which basically results in them selling to the wrong customers, to my point, which basically means more churn. So if you're a small to mid-sized vendor, I always advise to have at least a 50-50 split, where you are spending 50% in marketing, 50% in sales. What generally we see is 80-20 or 90-10. 10% going to marketing and 90% going to sales, because it can be, they have lesser budgets, they feel spending more in sales will give them the fruits, whereas we have seen it does not in the long run. And then if you are a large size vendor, then obviously you have a good marketing team placed by now, you have good sales team. But the biggest problem that we see, they're not able to sell because they're not targeting the right buyers. That's the huge problem that exists. Your marketing has their own sort of targets and your sales have their own targets, and they're often not talking to each other because they've grown so big. And marketing is saying, hey, we have produced 5,000 opportunities and you have only closed 100. And they keep on saying the marketing is not producing the right sort of people that we should be selling to. So most of the large size organization face this issue. And I think the biggest way of solving this problem is Software Finder, where we can address this gap really quickly because we are doing that heavy lifting for you that you will not get from your Google advertisement or your Meta social media or anywhere else, because again, you're targeting to the sea of people or prospects, and you're just getting everything that's coming to your door, which is great for the numbers, but at the end, you're wasting a lot of time because you're not talking to the right people.
So if we're coming back to smaller to mid-sized companies, because I think that's mostly our audience here, you think it's better to invest in brand and really building your presence and brand awareness before you actually go and start pushing for more sales?
That is correct. Like I've seen vendors where they've hardly done anything on their LinkedIn page or marketplaces. Even if you search their name, only their website shows up and nothing else. And they don't have any user reviews and they have not really invested in these things. So today's day and age, buyers do a lot of research. They don't tell you, like they're not telling your sales about these things, but after the demo, they spend at least 30 minutes doing thorough research on your company because, not everyone believes what they see in the sales demo. So they want that second opinion from somewhere to back their decision making. Which is what happened. Like if you're looking for a restaurant, you rely on reviews. You're looking for a doctor, you rely on reviews. Same way, if you're looking for a new software, you rely on that secondary information that is core to the decision making. And that's where I think companies like us and other similar companies or your overall brand needs to play a big role. Your user reviews are critical. So make sure you invest in building strong user reviews online and spend in branding so that the decision making is easier on the buyer front when they're choosing your brand.
Okay, I think with that, we're bumping into this other big topic, big-ish maybe, which is review manipulation. And I think a lot of review websites have faced that publicly or not. But again, this is something that is a true problem. So, maybe it's a bit of a philosophical topic on how to solve review manipulation, but how to find trustworthy reviews, how to make sure that you build a brand and establish the presence where buyers can trust the reviews you're putting out there. What do you recommend sellers to do?
Yeah, so I always say do your research. Anyone showing on top of Google, you would like to be there and you would like your user reviews to be there. I mean, ideally. So like to start with Google, you would like some really good reviews on Google, but then after Google, there are a lot of marketplaces that people or buyers rely on when they're looking for reviews. So make sure you only work with companies that are authentic, that does not allow review manipulation. There are companies out there who does false practices. But I think with every update, Google is penalizing those companies as well. Google bots are getting smarter and smarter and they catch such behavior online on other websites as well. So they're getting penalized anyway. But for sellers, I would say do your due diligence. But then it's not only about choosing which companies, it's a lot of hard work on sellers' front to get those reviews from their customers. It's not an easy job. So Software Finder offer an entire review campaign where you can run review campaigns going out of Software Finder to their customers, incentivizing them. If they want to leave a review, they can give them $25 or $50 or $100 Amazon voucher. What we have seen without incentive, it's very hard to get those user reviews. And then ask your account managers to work with your customer and then incentivize them internally somehow as well so that they can start to leave reviews. Because if you're not doing it, then you're relying on review manipulation. So do the hard work with companies like us to build your reviews. We have an entire team that can hold their hand and show them the right way on how they can build authentic reviews on our website. Don't just rely on organic reviews, because getting positive review is a lot harder than a negative review. So you have to work really hard in order to get those positive review. And there's always happy customers out there. It's just that, you need to work internally to get that review out of them.
Every time I talk to anybody working in reviews, I want to reach out to Starbucks and Amazon and ask them how much of their revenue is coming from the gift cards that B2B companies are paying for reviews. It's the most common answer. It's so funny. But thank you so much for sharing that. I think you were absolutely right. It's so important to get the reviews there, to work with your customers. It's every time we have a podcast here, it is a red thread throughout every episode. Talk to your customers, learn from them, communicate, build relationships. But I also wanted to come to this question about you and your personal experience building Software Finder, because I went to your LinkedIn and, while I was researching, I found this post where you were talking about 2025 being pretty difficult for you, and you hit a point where you realized that it's been a bit much. So, a lot of founders, especially bootstrapped, we even had series of episodes about mental health and awareness of burnout for founders. How did you get there, and how do you get out? What did you realize? What are you doing differently?
Achieving 100% growth last 5 years wasn't easy. Obviously, it had a lot of physical and mental toll on anyone seeing that bit of a growth. And we're seeing this growth from the get-go. So, if you are a slightly older company and taking that growth is slightly easier, because, a lot of processes are in place. So for us, we were 100 employees, maybe not even a couple of years ago. Now we're touching 340 employees. So, getting so many people on board, and we were lucky. We got some really good talent we found in the last few years. But then the maturity takes time, and the idea is not that simple. Marketplaces are very difficult to build. And because we keep on growing from industry to industry, so building that knowledge from one category to another, it's not easy, because these are huge industries with so much happening within one industry, like medical to HR to, let's say, ERPs. Like, we're talking about three different worlds. So I would say the major burnout was, in order to, rather than growing the business, was to build the team so quickly so that the model can survive. Because at the end, there's a lot of tech at the back, but a lot of service driven model, because we are talking to the buyers and building that consultative layer and making sure that consultants are well trained and they're using the technology when they're doing matchmaking on their end was not easy. And that took a lot of toll, not only on myself. I would say all three founders took that toll. But the situation has started to get a lot better, because our leadership layer is now maturing. They now understand, they have bought in the vision, and now they're doing what we were doing for the last year or so. So, and then now we have more time to, take care of our personal being, mental health, yoga, exercise, and whatnot to, get that tension out of the body. And we're better managing ourselves, because the organization is better managed because of all the talent that we hired in the last few years.
Great. I had a conversation very recently with another founder who said CEOs are judged in the first 5 years on how many hours they work, and the next is how many hours they sleep. Because then, after 5 years, you should have probably built a system where you can go home and sleep for 8 hours and do your yoga. And that means there is a great team.
Yes, that's right. And I think that now we're at the point that, where we can now afford to sleep 7 to 8 hours.
That's amazing. All right, I have just a couple more questions for you, which are the usuals here. And first one is, 7 years, 8 years, almost running a company. What has been the biggest win and the biggest failure for you? And it can be for you personally as a founder, or the company as a whole.
I would say, in terms of successes, there are so many successes, it's hard to identify one. But I would say last year, we grew the company at 110%, which was probably the biggest success at that level, because, every year is getting tougher growing at that level, because, the bigger the pie, the growth rate is a lot harder. So I would say last year we achieved 110% was the biggest success of our story. And I will align this with the team as well, growing from maybe 170 in 2024 to 350 teams. So, everyone really pitched in and involved. So it was not only the revenue growth, its team doubled up as well in order to push that growth, not only last year, but many, many more next years. And we're already seeing that this year, 100% growth is much easier than last year because of that. So that's probably the biggest success. Failure, quite a few failures as well. You don't succeed without failing. But I mean, I really have to think this through. What will be the biggest failure for personally or for the company? But I would say initially, obviously, we made some bad decision that really hurt our growth initially. For the last many years, I think we are doing pretty well. There hasn't been many big failures. I think it was probably, I would say, financial decision that, where to spend more money is again towards sales, towards branding, towards marketing, towards building the tech, towards building the team. And I would say the balance was very difficult because we were on a shoestring budget as a bootstrap company.
Yeah. The last question is always about a hack, right? And again, it can be something personal for you that helps you run the company with 300 plus employees, or it can be something that works for the company.
If you're an entrepreneur, then I would probably relate this to an entrepreneurial journey. Building a company in today's world is a lot easier than it was, I would say, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And you can still bootstrap companies. So don't just look for funding to succeed. And the biggest thing is that don't try to plan A to Z. Just do ABC, launch it, test it with the real customers and learn as you go, because what's in your head is very different to what people really need and how the whole thing is going to shape up at the end.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Anna. It was a pleasure to be here.
Same here.
And I really enjoyed the conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much, Andan.